to identify a toxic relationship and why you always want to save it. Psychology can be incredibly useful in teaching you about yourself, your interactions and relationships. It can also be particularly beneficial in helping us to deal with toxic relationships that have become controlling and manipulative. Psychological theory and practice can provide us with tools to help us develop our coping and communicative skills, as well as how we manage our emotional and practical responses in such difficult situations. Transactional analysis explains that if you find yourself consistently engaging in destructive patterns with someone, that a key reason may be due to your state of mind. Eric Berne explained that ego states are the center of TA and that they enable us to understand how we think, feel, and behave. The ego state is a consistent pattern in how we feel and experience in relation to another person. You may recognize when in conflict situations with a toxic person that you both may consistently be taking on either a child or parent ego state. For example, a situation may have occurred where your friend dominated your birthday by dictating what you and your shared group of friends should do, and where you should go with no consideration to your thoughts, wants, or feelings. You may have tried to explain your frustrations with this, to which your friend from a controlling, critical parent's ego state may have responded with rage for you daring to question them and for having a problem with it. Such a response may have been something that is characteristic of their parent, which could have influenced the way they have grown up in thinking that certain behaviours, interactions, are normal and acceptable. In such a situation, in response to your friend, you may have felt hurt, awkward and small, transitioning from a confident, neutral and balanced-minded adult ego state to an adapted child ego state, where you may have become passive and compliant to the other person. This friend may also guilt or plead with you to do what they want by pressuring you or by using emotional ploys to evoke attention and sympathy. Berne, 1964, explained that in such situations, a set of social games are being played. These games consist of a number of hidden transactions at social and psychological levels, containing duplex transactions. These games are fixed processes with particular patterns and hidden unconscious motives which are only felt in the final moment when the roles change. This friend, who in this situation is in a rebellious child ego state, may complain and be defiant against your wishes or boundaries so to make you feel guilty and bad. Consequently, you may transition into a nurturing parent ego state where you find yourself reassuring them, justifying yourself, sympathizing with their tantrums and negotiating your own feelings and needs in favor of theirs. If you find yourself in these kind of scenarios, you and the other person are operating in a drama triangle, a model by Carmen, 2014. Initially, you were the victim in the situation, being railroaded, scolded and bullied, whilst the friend was the persecutor being unfair or cruel to you. When the friend then switches tactics from pressuring to sympathy-evoking, you both change your positions in the drama triangle in something called a cross-up. The friend then becomes the victim due to having their fun denied, and you become the horrible persecutor that is causing the problem. The friend suddenly becomes the poor victim and whiny child, and you somehow become the persecutory parents ruining their day and then having to care for the fallout. This is a classic situation when you are dealing with a controlling and manipulative person and operating within a toxic relationship. When people transition between these ego states, such as in the example given, interactions can align as complementary interactions where the new roles may remain indefinitely. You could now always remain as the horrible person and them as the victim, even if in reality the situation is quite the opposite. To stop this dynamic from persisting, you should consider using reflection on action to assess your options. Reflectively, you may recognize that your behavior in response to your friend comes from being raised to be respectful, calm, and to look for reasons for others' behavior. Oppositely, your friend may have grown up in an environment that used conflict, aggression, and routine psychological games to handle social situations. To ameliorate this dynamic and to develop your interpersonal skills, you should maintain an adult ego state to communicate your issues. This state allows expression of awareness, assertiveness, and equality and forces the other person to either change their behavior or to move on to someone else. You could do this by expressing your issues to the friend, by communicating only reality-based points, and by remaining confident but open-minded. Assert within yourself that you are not going to feel responsible for whatever negative reaction that other person may have. In response, this person should hopefully respond positively and apologize, and perhaps even explain why they react the way they do. Perhaps their parent treats them the same way, which consequently influenced their behaviour and relationships as an adult. This positive outcome may ease the tension in the relationship between you and your friend, as you are able to reconsider the dynamics and empathize. Then, by applying attending skills by actively listening, making positive eye contact and body language with a kind and tempered-down voice and use of open-ended questions, you may be able to deepen your conversation and for it to become more meaningful, productive, and satisfying. This should hopefully enable you to overcome your conflict and to encourage your friend to reframe parallel situations they may come across in future. It may also help them to better understand and respect your boundaries, as well as how better to deal with future disagreements. It is important to communicate in this conversation to them the importance of this change in behaviour and what the future goals and expectations should be in your relationship. This type of informal helping reflects aspects of the micro-skills approach by Ivy et al. 2010, an approach used in formal helping such as counselling and various talking therapies. It is not uncommon that you may want to save your relationship with someone who can be a bit toxic. You may also want to help them to overcome their own issues and reasons for being the way they are. If this is the case, you may want to reflect on your own motives for wanting this. If you have a general tendency to want to understand, relate, improve the lives of, and be there for others, research suggests that your motivations may be due to a developed level of psychological resilience born from previous hurt as experienced in your life. This comes from a concept called the wounded healer, where your power, as the helper, comes from once being a cultural outsider or from experiencing conflict in family life. You may significantly identify with this and may feel that your past experiences are what have influenced your motivation to want to understand various people and situations, relationships, and consequential behaviour. Growing up, you may have been involved in, or been the bystander of, many situations of conflict, or may have been in situations where you felt ostracised, and therefore have learnt how to observe, predict, empathise, understand, and mediate many different situations and challenging personalities. It is important to recognise when it is time to call a relationship quits. Even though sometimes you may feel it is your role, it is not your job to fix someone, and it is never their right to abuse you mentally or physically, no matter what their past was like or their reasons for being a certain way. If toxic behaviour repeats itself and it is starting to wear you down, it is important that you respect yourself and your boundaries and free yourself from their grips. Detaching yourself from a toxic relationship, however, can be incredibly difficult. If you feel you need support in getting control and your freedom back, please see the links in the description box, as well as for the references for the research in this video.